Thank y'all so much for tuning in for another episode of Rich Off Passion. Today, I got a super dope and special guest. Her name is Patrice. Yes, another Patrice. Patrice Perkins of Creative Genius Law on the Line. What is going on, Patrice? How you doing?
I am fantastic. Super excited to be here. I've been looking forward to this since you reached out to me about it.
That's what's up. That's what's up. So for those that may not know, I've known Patrice, since I moved here, really, which was 7, 8 years ago. She was one of the first people I connected with here in Chicago when I relocated from Detroit. Fellow entrepreneur, was always a fan of what she's doing, hardworking, like-minded, work ethic is crazy, ambitious, and it's very rare that I come across people like that. So I had to have Patrice in my back pocket. I love reaching out to her and just talking to her about some of the, the pitfalls and some of the drama and just the journey of entrepreneurship, and especially with being a Black woman. And so I value her opinion. So I definitely wanted to bring her on to just talk about her journey as a entrepreneur. Now, I want to let you guys know up front, we are not going to get into no legal discussion. You guys can hit her up after this to set up a consult, but I really wanted to talk about the journey of being an entrepreneur. And, like I said, it's very rare that you come across that, especially in the legal field. So let's just jump right into it. So you're originally from Chicago, right?
I am from Chicago, born and raised, and probably will be here for the very far future.
Okay. That's what's up. But what cities do you are you licensed to practice in, though, or states, I should say?
Yep. So I'm licensed to practice in Illinois, but because a large part of my practice is actually federal law, which would be the intellectual property piece of my practice, then attorneys who practice in that area can essentially work with clients from across the United States. So even though I'm here in Illinois, I've been lucky enough to be able to work with people in different places.
That's what's up. That is so important because I know a lot of my listeners, majority of them are not here. That's real good to know. So what drove you to become a lawyer?
You know what? Funny you should ask. I actually initially did not want to be a lawyer. When I went away to school, I went away to be an architect. I had been saying since the age of about 5 or 6 that I was going to be an architect. And I had this thing against if somebody in my family had done one thing, I wanted to do something different. So my dad had actually gone to law school, didn't end up being a practicing attorney, but because he had done the law school route, I think for some odd reason, I was like, I want to do something different. So it wasn't until my junior year of undergrad when I was like, why are you fighting this lawyer thing? That's really what you want to do. And that's when I really set out on this path.
Nice.
Yeah.
And right now you have your own practice, right? Let's just make that clear. Okay.
Yes. I've had my own practice for now just over 10 years.
Wow. And you the boss.
I am the boss, even though I say these days, I want to hire people who will be the boss of me, but technically I am the boss. Yes.
I hear that. I got to stress that. Like, you don't work under anyone. You are the boss. You built it from the ground up full time, and you do this full time.
Full time. Absolutely.
Yeah, I got to stress that because, me and you talk about it. We talk about these fake entrepreneurs or just people that do it on the side. I really want to stress that because I feel like when you are doing it full time, your journey and your struggle is totally different. You don't have nothing to fall back on.
I agree. Yeah.
It's a totally different vibe and a different energy.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
It's a little scrappier than, when you have a cushion to fall back on. And I don't think, I think people just have to be clear on what they want to do, but just know that unless it's your full-time thing, you're really treating it that way, that you're not going to have the same level of grit that you would have if it was your full-time.
Exactly. So who do you have on your team now?
Yep. So right now it's four of us. I have an administrative assistant. I have a legal specialist who literally is just days away from being a licensed attorney.
Nice.
And then I have a marketing and client experience director. So there's
Okay.
four of us right now.
Nice. But it started out with just you.
You know what? Funny. I actually just remembered that I had an assistant from almost day one.
Oh, okay. Okay.
Yep. We can
All
get
right.
into why that was, but I did have an assistant pretty early on.
Got you. Now, how did you
Yeah.
select that person early on, as well as the team that you have now? Like, what is your process for looking for new people?
So early on, the reason why I even had someone was because when I did start, I started while working full time, because that's how most people start, right?
Yep.
And I wanted, even though I was working full time, I wanted this to present like a real thing, not just, as a hustle. And for me, in order to do a full-time job that demanded a lot of me and to build up a business on the side that I wanted to be full-time, I needed support. The first person I hired was actually an old family friend who literally believed in me from day one.
Nice.
She just happened to have been laid off from her job. And she told me, Patrice, I know whatever you're creating is going to be dope. Like, I've seen your hustle, and let me know if there's any opportunity for me to support. She was willing to support for free. And I actually needed someone, and I believe in paying folks. And so I said, hey, I actually have a way you can support me for pay. So that was how that happened. It was a family friend who believed in me. More recently, as in like the last 5 years, I've hired people through a traditional hiring process. I created a job description, posted it on LinkedIn and on Indeed through their job section, and had a regular interview process that you would expect of any place else.
Got you. Nice. Okay.
Yep.
Okay. Now, I just want to jump back a little bit because you mentioned you had a full-time job when you transitioned and started doing your own thing. What was that transition like for you?
Yeah, the transition for me, first off, it took some time. I had a 2-year period where I was developing the business. I had the business plan done. I was putting my savings to the side. I was doing all of that, like, not interesting, not fun work that happens in the background so that I could step out. And I wanted to be able to take my time with it so that I could step out and not necessarily feel pressured or make decisions that were solely based on money. So I took 2 years to plan my business.
Okay.
Luckily, I had a boss that was, we had a great relationship. I was able to talk to her about what I wanted to do when I left that job. So she knew that I was building something on the side. And so after 2 years of investing time and money, I had at least, they say 6 months of savings. I had probably more like 8 months. And I was just able to, really, it happened where the day I decided I didn't want to go back to the office anymore, I was like, okay, time for me to turn in that letter. I turned in the letter, and my job actually offered me the opportunity to contract with them.
Nice.
When I quit.
Okay.
And so my transition was me contracting with them for a little bit. And then at a certain point, I had to decide that I didn't want that like comfort, of that steady income. And so I pulled that blanket away and just did this full time.
And just did it. That's what's up. That's what's up. See, you was smart. You had some savings.
Oh yeah. I had a lot of savings because I had seen a lot of people step out into, I feel like people didn't really talk about like that prep work in terms of the finances.
Yep.
And I wanted my business to present well. I wanted it to be professional. I didn't want to make decisions that were based on my need to eat.
Yep.
And so I knew that the way for me to do that, was to make sure I had saved enough up front. And people don't really talk about what it takes to step out and really invest up front in terms of building that savings.
Exactly. See, me, I didn't have a savings. I jumped.
Yeah.
I jumped. And I was a hot mess. Like, I was a hot mess, stressed out. Lord have mercy. Take clients and projects that I didn't want to take, pulling my hair out. That's why I keep my hair short, because I swear I wouldn't man, it'll be falling out all the time. But yeah,
That's the alternative, you know.
exactly.
And some people thrive like that. Some people, you know, pulling that Band-Aid off real quick and just, you know, seeing what happens works for some folks. But I knew it wasn't going to work for me.
Right.
Yeah.
I think you did it the right way. That's how I kind of suggest and recommend people to go that route. They say, well, didn't you jump? Yeah, I did, but I wouldn't recommend you to do that, especially.
And a lot of people won't tell you that either.
They won't tell you that, right? Especially if, you know, a lot of people, they have families or they have significant others and they're married and they are taking care of their parents. Like, they have adult grown responsibilities. You can't just jump. See, me, I could do that. It's just me, you know. I don't have all of that going on for a reason, you know, so I can jump, but a lot of people do, and you just can't do that. You got to plan. So that's dope that you took 2 years to plan your exit strategy.
Yeah. And even with that, the transition still, it wasn't smooth, right? I had my savings built up, like I said, 6 to 8 months, but most of that went back into my business. You know, most of that went back into the business. And so it wasn't like I was able to live like this life of luxury that people also post about on Instagram. I was not. I got real skinny like the first 2-3 years of my business because I was, you know, it was scrappy and I was putting most of what I had back into the business. I wasn't going out to eat like I used to.
And as an attorney, like, let's stress that, because there's this facade online that all the lawyers and attorneys, especially in your lane and entertainment and whatnot, is like glamorous. Like, I'm out here, I'm getting it. But it's like, no, it's still like any other entrepreneur. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, it's not easy.
You still have to grow. There's still some good to it.
And just because I know, you know, Patrice here likes, you know, you like me, like, you don't like fluff. You like to get real specific.
Get to the point.
When I left my full-time job, I was well into 6 figures. I was making, I want to say about 130, 140,000. Okay. I was doing really well for my age. My first year in business, I made $26,000. Wow. Just to put numbers to it. I had a solid clientele. I learned a lot of lessons that first year. One of them being that I was underpricing my services because I had a fair amount of clientele, but I made $26,000. So to your point around, you know, just because I am an attorney, that leap, even with my savings, wasn't comfortable, right? But I think it's a necessary part of the process.
Right. And then you also mentioned just now how you underpriced yourself. That's something that a lot of us do starting out too. So just to, you know, piggyback off that, how long did it take you to realize that and charge what the market was at that time?
There were a couple of stages. So the first time was when I looked up and I had about 26 clients my first year, made $26,000. That was the first thing, because I was like, whoa, you actually had a lot of clients, but you should have made more. For me, that was the first thing. And it wasn't that I hadn't researched. It was with some industries, it can be hard to figure it out because people's rates aren't the same. Like you might find a range, but then you're trying to price for your experience and for your market. And so that's what I was trying to do. And I just got it wrong. So that was the first point. The second point, so I did a rate increase after that. The second point was, so I hired someone to do a pricing analysis for me. And she literally worked with me to go through each service I offered. We had to dissect what was the hard cost and what was the soft cost for me to deliver that service. And then once we fleshed that out, we had to take a hard look at how much we were actually profiting from each service. And so going through that process with her, it became very clear there were some services that we were still in the red on. And so I needed to do another fee increase after that. But the difference was that I was able to do it just based on black and white numbers from a professional who led me through that analysis. So now we're at a place where, you know, I know my fees are where they should be, profit-wise, to make sure we're actually able to deliver a quality service and put the amount of input that's needed for our clients into it.
Nice.
Yeah.
Cool. So how many hours do you spend, like, a day or even a week working?
Working, I'm full time, so I
Right.
still spend minimally 40 hours a week. I would say maybe sometimes 50 hours a week, but I'm
Mm-hmm.
still full time. Now, if you want to talk about like how that's divided up,
Mm-hmm.
this actually spends about 10 hours on client work per week.
Okay.
So of that, most of my time, and this is reflective of like the stage I'm at in my career,
Mm-hmm.
most of my time is spent on the strategic planning for the
Mm-hmm.
business development, making sure our systems are tight,
Mm-hmm.
and getting things in place that either help my team grow or help the clients grow. So assessing whether there's a better way to deliver the service, whether there's a better way we can support clients. And so a very small percentage of my work is spent on the actual client work out of the total hours in a week.
Got you. So where do
Yes,
you fit in self-care? Is that a part of your day or
it
your
is.
week?
You know what? If you had asked me that like 3 years ago, I would have been like, "What? Ain't nobody got time
Like,
for
what's
that."
self-care? What is
Right.
that?
But what I've learned is it's necessary because I don't want to. I've seen people just burn out from
Mm-hmm.
their businesses. And I think it's easy to do when you love what you do.
Yep.
And so you don't mind doing it around the clock. And that's kind of how we both are, I think. And with us being that way, I think we have to be extra aware around where we might be setting ourselves up to burn out. So I do believe in self care. I actually have a little like go to list of things I can do.
Mm-hmm.
And so honestly, some things I've started reading more. I've always been a reader, but I had gotten into like all business books.
Mm-hmm.
So now I'm actually reading like mysteries and other things just for fun.
Yep.
I now try to like take a walk in the morning. I try to just spend time. Music is a big, big, big thing of mine.
Mm-hmm.
And I had gotten to this place where I wasn't even really like keeping up with new releases, which was
Yep.
different for me because I was focused on work so much. So
Mm-hmm.
now I actively, as a part of my self care, make sure I carve out time to listen to new releases each week, because that helps fuel me. It
Right.
it helps my creative side,
Yep.
and it helps fuel me. So things like that, and I think it's easy to have like this one picture of like what self care is,
Mm-hmm.
but it honestly just depends on the person, and it doesn't have to be like going to the spa. That might be it for some people, but it doesn't have to be that.
Right. Right. For sure. So how do you stay motivated? Like, or do you have periods where you lose motivation for what it is that you do and you have to bring it back or find it?
So I stay motivated because I've been really intentional around the clients that we take on from day one.
Mm-hmm.
And so I don't just take on clients who have the money to pay for an attorney. I take on clients um, who I believe are visionaries, who even if I wasn't being paid, I would want to work on what on their project. And so they are my biggest motivators because I am working with people who literally are just working on like such impactful and dope creative
Mm-hmm.
things. They keep me going. So even when
Yeah.
I'm tired, it's like, heck, like you get to wake up and work on this. You better
Yeah.
get your ass up. So that keeps me motivated. And honestly, right now, seeing what people have been creating during COVID-19
Yes.
has kept me motivated. I
Yes.
feel like we've seen a new level of creativity right now, and
Mm-hmm.
that has really moved me in a different
Nice. Nice. Cool. Are you ever, I mean, you kind of, I don't want to assume, but I still want to ask you, are you ever frustrated with creatives?
way. Am I frustrated with creatives?
Yeah.
So the answer is,
Or have you ever been frustrated?
oh, of course. Yeah, I've
Yeah.
been frustrated.
Uh-huh.
Um, and I think I get frustrated because I don't think that I shouldn't say a lot. I think that there are a number of creatives out there who really don't recognize and respect the value of their own work.
Yes.
And that is frustrating for me to see. And it plays out in a couple of different ways. For
Mm-hmm.
me, it plays out in, um, you don't partner with a brand just because they have a name, but you're not really thinking strategically around what you're getting in return. You're just excited because that brand offered you an opportunity. When they offered you an opportunity, because they see everything that you're bringing to the table.
Right.
So that frustrates me probably the most.
Okay. Okay.
Yeah.
So how do you handle it? Like, do you
So
or manage it?
manage it. Yeah. So the big thing that I do is I've always believed in that legal education was just as important as being a practicing attorney.
Mm-hmm.
And so from the very beginning, I have always participated in workshops. I've done like my own events where people can get free legal information. And I've done pop-up legal clinics for free. So outside of being an attorney behind a desk, I believe that is my answer to that frustration,
Mm-hmm.
because
Mm-hmm.
there's a lot of information that people don't know.
Mm-hmm.
And while they can Google, there's also a lot of misinformation on Google.
Right.
And so instead of just, venting about the frustration, I want to provide opportunities for people to learn at different stages.
For sure. For sure. I feel the same way even in my lane. There was one point in time where I was frustrated and I had a hard time managing it. But it wasn't until I started teaching where I realized, like, okay, it's the education. We can say, oh, you can go to Google it. But sometimes people want or they need to learn from someone. You know what I'm saying? Like, even though that information is there, they still want it delivered by a person.
Yeah.
And it's like, we can't expect people to know something if they're not taught,
Yeah.
and
Exactly.
especially with some of these young artists too. It's like they're signing artists as soon as they get into high school. Like, I don't expect
Mhm.
a freshman in high school to learn about law or entertainment law or to read a contract. I don't expect that, so we shouldn't have that expectation of them at this point. So I totally agree with you that education is a way to fight that frustration, but yet put out good energy into the universe.
Yep. And I think, because we are both so passionate about what we
Mm-hmm.
do, it can, it's real easy for us to take it like personal.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like I take everything real personal because I genuinely care.
Right.
And so
Right.
I try, when I feel that happening, try to just pull back, a little bit, so that I don't let like my personal attachment and wanting for literally everyone to just make it big, get in the way of the work that I'm here to do.
Exactly. Exactly. So what inspires you? Like, do you have any inspiration around you that keeps you going?
So I think that it's really important for the space that you're in to inspire you, and that's what inspires me. So at home, I've been really intentional around making sure my walls are covered by work of artists who really inspire me,
Mm-hmm.
mostly Chicago artists. And so I have actually a really small place, it's like 600 square feet, but almost every inch of my wall is covered with art from Chicago artists. And
Nice.
so when I see that in the morning, that is like a beautiful reminder of, I mean, it's a beautiful motivator. So that's one thing. I'm really big on aesthetics, not just from like a visual perspective, but from a sensory perspective. So
Mm-hmm.
again, at home and at the office, I make sure I keep a diffuser going and I know what scents get me moving. So I love lime and vetiver mixed together. They get
Mm-hmm.
me energized. And so I'm paying attention to like what smells are around me.
Mm-hmm.
The other thing that motivates me, honestly, is cooking a good meal
Yeah.
and making it look like just really beautiful on a plate. And
Yeah.
so I think that kind of goes back to your self care
Mm-hmm.
question earlier.
Mm-hmm.
But it's really important for us as creatives and as entrepreneurs to be in tune to know like what motivates me might be different from the next person. So for
Right.
me, it's all about the space in that environment.
Exactly.
And you
Exactly.
haven't had the opportunity to come to our current office, but I'll say that has translated into my office spaces as well. I've always selected office spaces that just made me feel energized when I
Mm-hmm.
walked in.
Mm-hmm.
Whether it was because we were at Lacuna initially, so whether it was kind of like the grittiness and like the raw environment that motivated me in my current space is the city views, but it's like these non-traditional city views we get from our rooftops that kind of motivates me.
Yeah.
So yeah.
Yeah. It's so important. I totally agree with you. Do you have a support system?
Oh, I have a huge support system. I
Okay.
don't, where do we even begin? So I come from a family of entrepreneurs. That is critical. I think that I am in a very blessed place because I come from a family of entrepreneurs. When I told my parents what I wanted to do, there was no like pushback or pressure
Mm-hmm.
around me wanting to leave a quote unquote comfortable job, right?
Mm-hmm.
So my granddad was a painter. He had a barbecue place on the in Chicago, a
Okay.
barbecue restaurant at some point. My great uncles had a nightclub. They had a liquor store. And
Mm-hmm.
so my parents always had like their business on the side of the full time. And when they retired to their full time business. And my sister's a veterinarian and had a veterinary clinic for over 10 years. So it's in my blood, I believe. And so to answer your question, my family is probably like my biggest support system.
Nice.
My friends also, it's
Mm-hmm.
very important as entrepreneurs that even if you don't already have it in your circle, and this is something we talked about when you first moved here,
Mm-hmm.
even if you don't already have it in your circle, you have to be intentional around surrounding yourself with people who get your struggle, who are
Yep.
going to encourage you, keep you going,
Right.
and believe in your brilliance ultimately.
Mm-hmm.
And I've been able to cultivate that in some of my long term friends who are also entrepreneurs, but
Mm-hmm.
new friends I developed along the way.
Nice.
You're part of my support system. I mean,
Yeah, you're part of mine as
yeah,
well.
I'm able to drop in. I'm able to drop in Patrice's DMs
Yep.
and cuss,
Yeah,
when I need to.
it goes down in the DMs. Yeah,
Yeah.
we had some good conversations, and sometimes you call me out on my craziness, and I'm like, for real, like people don't realize that I'm one of the types that I encourage that. Like, if I'm wrong, tell me I'm wrong. If I'm thinking crazy, tell me I'm thinking crazy. Because, just being a Virgo, I'm just self-aware as it is, and I always
Mhm.
want to improve, and I'm very open-minded. So when I have people in my circle that feel comfortable calling me out and telling me where I went wrong, I'm like, oh, just have no idea. Like, they moved up in the ranks for me.
Oh
That's
yeah.
that's just me. That's just how I am. So yeah, that's what's
Yeah.
up. That's what's
Yeah.
up. So, what advice would you give to younger creatives who have time and less responsibilities right now? Like we mentioned earlier, the teenager that's
Mhm.
trying to pursue music. Like, what advice would you give them from a legal perspective as well as an entrepreneur perspective?
Yeah. I'll start with the entrepreneur perspective first. So I would say I don't. It doesn't matter what stage you are in your the development of your business. Treat it like it's big business from day one.
Mm-hmm.
It doesn't matter who has their eyes on you. It doesn't matter how much money is coming in the door. Treat it like you care about it. I think that was one of the most important decisions I made from early on. That I didn't care if there was just one pair of eyes on my business or no pair of eyes. What I was going to create was going to be quality.
Yep.
And so I think if you do that to get even more kind of tactical, um, I think we could spend a lot of time giving time to other people. And so if you are someone who's working, let's just say a part-time job, you're giving 15, 20 hours per week to
Mm-hmm.
that part-time job.
Mm-hmm.
What if you committed to giving 15, 20 hours per week to your business,
Exactly.
even before you have clients or even before you have people who are paying attention? That will pay off tremendously down the road for you.
Right.
And so that's my advice from my entrepreneur perspective. From a legal perspective, I would say do what you can now to start educating yourself on the law. One of my favorite things to do, honestly, is to stay on top of the legal news, particularly in entertainment, and see who's suing who, who keep landing in court,
Right.
and reading about those decisions, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so for me, I think that's just a very, especially if you are in entertainment, there's something happening every day. Stay
Mm-hmm.
on top of the Hollywood Reporter, Billboard, Deadline. If you're on
Mm-hmm.
top of those three publications, Variety, for, then you'll get a feel for the types of legal issues that are surfacing in entertainment.
Mm-hmm.
And then usually, if you Google enough, you can find part of the court records publicly where you
Yeah.
don't have to pay for it.
Yep.
And so I think that's to me, one of the easiest ways to start to see it, because it makes it relatable to what
Mm-hmm.
you're experiencing, particularly in entertainment. And then also, you get the actual court documents if you do enough digging, and you can see like what the judges are talking about, what laws they're referring to, all of that.
Mm-hmm.
So I think that's a easy, interesting way to begin to educate yourself about the law.
Dope. Dope.
Also, I want to share a resource there, Patrice. So one of my favorite resources that is free is the Copyright Office puts out what they call a fair use index, which is
Mm-hmm.
basically an index of all of the court decisions on fair use, which is
Okay.
related to copyright, which is everything that everybody listening should care about.
All right.
And so that index is basically broken up by issue. So if you want to know about like the recent music cases that had a fair use issue, recent book publishing, whatever, you can check off what you want.
Mm-hmm.
And they literally give just like a 1-page overview of each case. Like, this was the
Okay.
issue, this is what happened, this is what was decided. It's a free resource. Stay on top of that and you'll be ahead of the game.
And it's online.
It's online.
Okay.
Yep.
Nice. Nice. I'll drop a link in the descriptions for that,
Okay.
as well as
Perfect.
all the other resources that you listed.
Perfect.
Oh, dope. Okay. I had an artist reach out to me a couple days ago. Actually, yeah, last week. And she said, Patrice, how much would you charge me to just walk me through on how to set up a trademark? And I'm like, whoa, wait a minute. Like, I'm not a lawyer. Like, even though, I shouldn't even say this in front of you. I did register my own.
I know you did. That's okay.
But see, you know that I'm a little different.
You also have a good, you do your research.
I do my research, exactly. So even though I did my own, I don't want to advise someone else on it, because I have relationships with people that do this every day professionally and know the law in and out and know the process. So I told them, no, I can't do that. However, I mentioned your name and told them too that I will be speaking to you. So what I wanted to ask you, in pertaining to that, what advice would you give someone who is wanting to trademark their name? Now, I know they can do it themselves like I did, but but what is the pros and the cons between doing it themselves as well as hiring someone like you?
So let's start with the cons so we can end on this part on a good note.
Sounds good.
So one of the cons is that there's actually a book that is well beyond 1,000 pages. That is a book of trademark rules. And so there is a rule for each and everything concerning owning a federal trademark, even down to the punctuation that you have to have, and how if you include a semicolon instead of a comma, it means a different thing, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so there is a huge part of the process that's highly technical, that a lot of people don't realize. And if you're not getting it right, you may end up with a trademark that grants a more narrow protection to you than you actually intended. So that's the first part, right?
Okay.
Second con is going to be the fact that federal trademarks, if I was at the office, I'd show you the book, but it's literally like this thick.
Wow.
The second con is that trademarks can be challenged by someone even after you've registered a federal trademark. So let's just say you have registered your trademark on your own, not to instill any fear in Patrice here, but let's just say you've registered on your own, and the examining attorney, who's the attorney from the U.S. Trademark Office, they didn't flag anything. You got it registered. You're like, great, I got my certificate. For the first 5 years, someone can come along and they can challenge your trademark on the grounds that it should have never been registered. for
First
a
5
number of
years?
reasons. First
What?
5 years.
See, I
Yes.
didn't know that.
Yep. And so this is a strategy that that I regularly use for clients. If there is a trademark on the record that's blocking my client's trademark, I'll go and look at that person's application history. I'll look at their certificate and see if there's a way we can challenge and get their trademark canceled. So that can happen for the first 5 years. So for those first 5 years, your trademark is really vulnerable. And so to me, those are the biggest cons, because you don't want to have a registration that doesn't protect you in the way you intended. And you
Right.
also don't want to have someone like me who might come along and try to get your trademark canceled because you didn't really know what you were doing in the first place, and I can tell.
There
Right.
you go. There you
So
go.
those are the two cons.
Okay.
The pros are, you want the pros of doing it yourself?
No, the pros of hiring you.
Oh, okay. I'm like, I don't
ain't
have
no
any pros.
ain't no pros of them doing it themselves. We want them to
Right.
come talk to you because you've already put me on game. Like, I didn't know that stuff. I think I'm approaching 5 years, so I'm gonna have to go look at my paperwork. But no, we already know the cons. What's the pros of hiring you?
Okay, so the pros of hiring me is that you have someone who knows the rules, or we love to do the research, so we'll figure it out for you. We're going to make sure that you don't just have a trademark registration that's going to get you through the process, but we're going to make sure that you can still get through the process and be infringing on someone else's mark, and it just didn't get flagged. So we're going to make sure that you're going to have a registration that sticks. And we're going to be looking out for your long-term interest. So, for example, after 5 years, your trademark can become incontestable, meaning what I just mentioned earlier, that within the first 5 years, people can get it canceled. After 5 years, it can become incontestable. There's a process that your attorney has to do for it to be incontestable. But that, I see Patrice is breaking out her pen, y'all. And so that's part of the value of working with an attorney, because we are going to be listed on the record. We're going to have you on what's called our docket. And so when that 5-year mark hits for you, we will be contacting you and saying, hey, there's this filing we can do so that your mark is incontestable. Let's talk about whether you want us to handle it. So it's more of that like big picture value that you get from us.
Gotcha. Nice.
I do want to specifically give some feedback for a person who may be like super early career, and let's just say they can't hire an attorney right now, because trademark attorneys are not inexpensive. And so they're like, well, dag, I want to hire an attorney, but I don't want to do it myself because I just listened to her talk about the cons. What can I do right now? What I would recommend for you at this stage is law school clinics, right? So law schools have clinics where students are providing the service under the supervision of an attorney. I used to go to DePaul, and I worked in the clinic as a law student. I worked in the civil rights clinic, but we had clinics for everything. As a now practicing attorney, I went back and volunteered for the IP clinic. And so those students will work your file for free, meaning they will do the trademark for free, but it's part of a class assignment for them. And so the support they lend you is going to support like their class syllabus and schedule and all of that. So honestly, like if you're someone where you just don't have the money, before you try to do it yourself, I would research the local law schools and see who has a clinic. And they do a decent job. And then when you are in a position to hire an attorney, come see me. So
there you go.
Where you can find me is creativegeniuslaw.com. I'm also on Instagram at creative_ESQ, and the law firm is on Instagram at Creative Genius Law.
Boom. So there y'all have it. So with that being said, Patrice, thank you so much for coming on. I appreciate your friendship, your insight, and your willingness to always be a resource and just to share. Definitely follow her on Instagram, because her and her firm put out really good information regarding like current events, as well as just the law and just everything surrounding that. So definitely stay tuned with what she has going on by following her, and yeah, just reach out to her if you have any questions. Yeah, so that's it. Thanks again. I appreciate it. And yeah, I'll check y'all out in the next episode. Peace.
Thank you.